Hey guys, thank you for joining us for another exciting episode of Yoml. This is, I guess, a spring break week episode, and I think we are one of our favorite book. Is this installment 2 of 5 of one of our favorite book, top 5 book, the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is one of our 5-part reflections. One of our one of our favorite books overall. And this particular reflection was something I learned from Thinking Fast and Slow about being beware of the expert. So I know you guys have both read this book, but you guys remember the sections of of the experts, like being beware of the expert kind of stuff from Thinking Fast and Slow, where they do a lot of like studies and things like that with like stocks or whatever, even medical stuff. Like the more expert you are in a field, it's basically flip a coin. If you had a monkey just picking random outcomes, I guess, like in terms of who's better, who's worse, and it's a as you get to know something more and more and more, you start to narrow your focus in such a tiny little window. You forget all the other stuff around you, and then all of a sudden, like most of your predictions of all these so-called like experts, especially on things that are wicked environments, not kind environments, meaning like there's a lot of uncertainty around it, like markets or health or just life in general or whatever it may be. The more
Which
abstract
is
and the more wicked it
99%
is.
of everything.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there's
Pretty
there's
much. Yeah.
only like there's only so small percentage of any kind of environment. Kind of environment means like there are very strict rules and structures, right? Like
Right.
a chess game. You invented a chess game because he said, "Hey, these are the rules." Right? You play a football game. These are the rules. Those are kind of environment where everything has a rule, and the rule we made it up. But
Yeah.
everything else beyond that is always the dynamic, right?
So pretty much
And,
the rest
and
of life.
we call it we call it wicked. And so that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. 99% of all environments are wicked environments.
Right. And the worse and the more wicked they are, the less you should ever trust somebody that thinks that they're an expert in that field. In terms of just statistical, I guess, like probabilities of whether or not they're right or not. Like they're usually wrong. Or not, they're more wrong than they're right. Is the basis of the thing that I learned from Thinking Fast and Slow. How that made me reflect, I guess, on my own life by learning about that is it made me think back to my life before Amelia and my life after Amelia. So before Amelia, I was well on my way to becoming what I would call an expert in my field. Sales and marketing is really what I've been doing this now for 15 years at a high level. And, I feel like, people would consult with me. I did a lot of consulting with people all the time, whether it be my team, my employees. I even consulted with, CEOs and things like that would reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask me about like my background and could I help them, or people would find me on pickmybrain.com or whatever it was, places like that, right? And I was pretty damn good at what I thought knew what I was doing, and thought I was a pretty well-rounded, becoming an expert in my field, and that was a part of my life plan going forward. And however I decided to apply that, and then obviously everything, as we talked about many times in this journey, everything changed for me in like an instant, when Amelia was born, and that 39 days that we spent with her. And one of the biggest lessons that I learned immediately was that I don't know anything. Like everything that I thought that I had this big plan, and I was moving toward like some expert status in life, and here's my 10, 20, 30 year plan kind of thing that I would sit down and write out goals for and map out and all that other bullshit. I quickly realized it can really change in an instant, and life has a way of really humbling you that way, and really slapping you in the face, I guess, if you will, and reminding you that you don't know shit. So that was a huge slap in my face, I guess, and wake up call for me. And then later on down the road of the Your Magical Learning Journey, obviously came across this book, and it reminded me of the dangers of trying to be an expert. And the weird thing is it's a bit of a slippery slope, right? Like being knocked back down to ground to -20, after Amelia passed away, versus feeling like I was an expert before she came into my life. As this journey has gone on, we've learned a shitload of stuff, right? Like we've explored a lot of different topics. We've learned a lot about humanity ourselves and more. And I feel like I'm getting back into the point in time where I'm getting to be more and more of an expert on Chris Sears again, and I feel like I kind of know where my life is going, and I feel like I kind of have a direction, and I feel like I'm kind of starting to maybe figure things out a little bit every once in a while. And then I constantly have to remind myself of this kind of a concept of like, no, stop. Like, you don't know shit. Like, you don't know anything. True. You and I say this all the time. It's one of our core values of Clubbing. It's one of everything. It can all change tomorrow. You could be the 1,001st day turkey tomorrow, right? And it's like this weird balancing act of life where like we have this weird pull toward wanting to be an expert in everything, but then at the same time, like it's so easy to forget that you don't know anything in this world, so it's one of the things that I've strived to do on this journey, and I will continue to do it for forever and beyond, to kind of maintain that balance, is whenever I feel like I'm starting to figure shit out, like I go visit my daughter's grave every week on Sunday and remind myself like this is the other side of the equation, right? Of knocking you back down to zero, and it can happen anytime. Revisiting this journey, I love that we have these conversations every single day. I love that I get to read my own reflections and read and talk to you guys about this stuff, because it reminds me, this conversation will remind me to keep it in my head, like, hey, you don't know anything, like just keep pushing forward, but like remember that that beginner's mindset. And then the third one is a quote from Beginner's Mind, with, if your mind is empty, it's always ready for anything. If it's open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. I don't know about you guys, but like knowing that there's so many unanswered questions in this world makes me feel so much more alive every day, and when you think a lot of stuff, life becomes pretty fucking boring. So like I try to keep that, all these things, and to maintain that balance between learning and wanting to learn and grow, at the same time also remember I don't know anything. So love to learn how you guys find balance between knowing and not knowing in your life, and what your thoughts in general about the expert, are you guys, how do you feel about that, I guess, concept?
Trio?
You want me to go first?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think now, like I said, this book is one of our top 5 books. And the reason why it's top 5 isn't because of how fun it is to read, but it has so much things that I can learn from it. And it's just packed full of things that, of humanity, the way humanity is really how it behaves underneath, using our primitive minds and the the modern mind, the system 1, system 2. And I think this is one of the thing that people really, I guess they miss took they take it for granted, for example, because a lot of the things we know in life, it's wicked, meaning the only quote unquote wicked. I keep have to kind of rephrase this because a lot of people don't understand what I'm gonna say. The word wicked, just means it's dynamic and it's in flux all the time. That's the environment we're in. And when we are in this book, it says, we're talking about it. So in this book, one of the um I guess one of the section is telling about the experts, right? In the book, he described a I guess I don't know, was him or was somebody else he knew. They kind of put up a more of like a platform for people to solve problems. It's called incentives, meaning they are basically put out a bounty for people to solve problems. And in the study they did, is the majority of the people who are the solver of the problems, or were never inside of the field. If they are an engineer problem, farmers would actually solve the problem. And it's always like, that's why they have this website called incentive. Basically they give you like prizes, money to solve problem, and And anyone can list any problem they want to solve, and especially in biology, in health, in whatever. Um, they would actually post a question, and most, like all of the answer, the problem solvers that get the most innovative solutions came from outside the field.
Yeah,
And
happens
and,
all
and
the time.
right. And so the thing is, it's kind of is so he basically said, hey, these are the evidence. I'm telling you why I'm saying, don't trust expert, because expert the expert what we do is we have this bias. This bias is a confirmation bias, and the reason why it doesn't work is because um, when we start to look at something and we see there is some sort of a pattern, and we say, hey, if I do this, it does this, right? And then over time, I say, if I do this, I know what it does. So I have a confirmation. It was confirming to me before that doing ABC will affect, XYZ. And that's is the confirmation bias. So anytime I see ABC again and it does in this manner, I'm expecting it to behave just like I see before. But the problem is that we are in a quick environment. So the saying that I love to say is no man can step in the same river twice, right? What does that mean? And so to kind of simplify that, I say even Steve Jobs cannot repeat his success. Even Elon Musk cannot repeat his success. The reason for that is he was able to attain the perfect storm of criteria to make him a success. But now he is in a different time. His criteria has changed. And even then, the expert in that field is no longer expert. For example, if we're in sales, right? Let's say we're in sales in 1990. What the expert in sales, like, we're looking at like Brian Tracy, a bunch of these guys. So these guys, like Ted Nicholas, right? These guys are expert in sales, but you ask them to be an expert in sales today, they suck at it, and the thing is they're even worse than me, not knowing anything. The reason for that is because they have seen something that works in the past, and they will try to stay in that mindset. So this is why like any of the baby boomers in business, they are struggling to get sales today. The reason for that is they have learned the old techniques. The
Stop
old
learning.
techniques no longer works. For
Right.
example, postcard flyers. People don't read that anymore, right? And then in the 2000, right? Um, we have emails, right? Emails work. Everybody's doing email. So you want to be an expert in marketing, you learn email marketing. But email has been becoming a problem, right? And so the problem is that things have changed. It's new. So when you're an expert in something, you held on to the past and you refuse to learn the new things. Therefore, a beginner's luck is it's basically not really beginner's luck. It's just like a beginner's mind, because I don't have any confirmation bias to say, hey, I'm going to stick to this. So if anyone is trying to send you, trying to get your business by sending you a postcard, right? These guys are not making any sales. That's why they go with like Salesforce CRM. They go with like HubSpot. They go with like Google Ads, Facebook ad, right? TikTok
Well,
ad, Spotify ad.
ironically, I'll challenge you on one thing. Ironically, when you go back to the old school way of doing stuff, sometimes it's so old school that people actually appreciate it. Like, and they're like, "Oh my god, like you hand wrote me a note. Like, that's really nice." Like,
That's
like
BS. That's no.
now we
I think that's BS.
no, it really does work. I mean, like I'm saying, but
It does not work, dude. Look, it does not work for
I,
me. It does
I,
not work.
I
Thing is,
I'm
it
not saying that
works.
it works all the time. I'm
But
saying that,
my
like,
point is,
ironically, you could deploy it when
Chris.
you want to.
My
Yeah.
point is, Chris. When you say it works, right? That's the exception. I mean, oh, I appreciate. So one of 100, we say, yeah, I'll
Oh,
buy
I
you.
wouldn't do it all the
But
time. I
that's
didn't say,
not
yeah.
going to give you the sales that you need to make a living. So to me, that doesn't work in the general sense.
Wait,
Yes,
hang on.
somebody.
I meant that's one more tool in your tool bag. Ironically, now, like
But
being able to go back to that. That's all I was saying. Yeah.
but no. Look, I'm trying to explain your reflection, and you're just
Yeah.
trying, you're trying to deduct points from it. The point is, when you're an expert, you rely on that, and because you have seen it work in the past, you have confidence in it. So you're gonna go out there and you print 1,000 or 10,000 handwritten letters, right? How much time it would take you to get there, and what's the percentage of people gonna go and pick you as a business? It's very low. So in that sense, you're actually wasting more money. So your point isn't valid in this case.
Well, no, I meant like you can do. Never mind. We can move on from this one because I'm that I
Because you
wasn't saying
don't
it
do
right.
it.
Yeah.
You don't do it, Chris. You don't do handwritten letters to everybody.
Not to everybody. I meant
Well,
the very specific, unique situations. Like that's when you do it. When like it's because it's a change of pace. Like it disrupts what they're used to all day long of
yes,
being
but I'm
inundated
saying
by the
is you
digital
don't do
stuff.
it. You don't do it as the bulk of your
No,
your
no,
process.
no.
My point exactly. That is like, hey, let me try something new, so it's kind of disrupted.
Right.
But that's not the bulk of the process. The bulk of the process is what? Hey, can I get you on a phone call? Can I go meet you and talk and see what kind of problem that you have that I can provide answers for? That's probably like 90% of all the stuff you do inside of your team, right? It's about like understanding the people's difficulties and find solutions for that difficulties. That's to me is 90% of all the thing that you do, right?
Yeah.
That's the gist of it. But if you're talking about, hey, I'm gonna send a letter here and there, that isn't it. You're the expert in the new modern sales. You're the expert in the modern today's day. The expert in back then, they spent 90% of their time writing the handwritten letters.
Well,
That's the
they
difference.
spent 90% of their time on the road, and
But yeah,
going
exactly.
from place to place. But no, I get your point. No, I mean definitely like time and place, and your
But
river
the thing is,
analogy is important.
I want to clarify that the reason why the expert isn't an expert is because they're an expert in something that's old, they're expert in something that no one longer use, but they held on to it without letting it go. So the beginner's mind is actually better than having to hold on to something that you think works but no longer works. That makes it worse. That's why you have the beginner's luck, right? Beginner's luck is because you have beginner's mind. You just 50-50. That's why the monkeys actually have a better portfolio than the stock experts. Because the stock expert, what they do is when because it is so dynamic, right? When they see a certain pattern, they take that pattern and say, hey, I'm gonna squeeze and narrow down this sample so that it fits this pattern. And the more you squeeze, the smaller of a pie size, of data that you can access to. So basically, everything else you have, you basically discard. You discard all the signals, all the data, because you say, hey, it has to fit this. You look at a stock pickers, right? Okay, I'm a technical analysis. I have to say, hey, it has to be above the 200-day moving average, or it has to be 50 days moving average crossing the 200-day moving average, or it has to be a Fibonacci retracement, or they have to be some kind of a uh, trend line or whatever. They basically take some made up rules and trying to squeeze it in. So in the AI sense, we call this overfitting, right? You overfit everything. Basically, you make up your rules and you say, hey, these will have to fit. Otherwise, I'm not going to draw. I'm not going to accept the data. I'm going to throw all the data away. And so basically, you end up with a smaller sample, and that's why it doesn't work. It's because you're trying to make a dynamic, quote unquote, wicked environment into a kind environment, which is rules and patterns, which doesn't work, doesn't exist. So this is why the book is so fascinating. Is because we take the opposite, right? Because we take something that we can't really understand and find patterns to, and then we trying to make it into a pattern, make it fit. That's why we categorize everything. We categorize everything. We categorize, like, I mean, the thing is, you're talking about like there are a certain number of species or of certain animals that we kind of slice down to like 10 different categories, and then there's a whole massive plethora of other animals we just categorize into one grouping just because we don't have no idea what they are, right? So
Right.
same thing with the race, right? You have like 2/3 of all the race on Earth is Asians. So we're like, so we group them into Asian, it was two-thirds of the population, and then they one-third we split them up to, like, this kind, this kind, this kind, this kind. But so that's the thing, is we made up a lot of these rules. We're trying to find any kind of justification to put it in. So having an expert mind means that. And so if you want to be an expert, right, be an expert in something that is trending, it is new and not expire. If you're expert in something that has passed, then it actually going to be, you know, it detracts from you, from your ability to judge.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think those are all really good points, and very much in line with my thoughts as well. So, do you have anything to add here?
There's a lot of ground covered in this whole book, and how do you find yourself between knowing and not knowing in your life? I just think about True's point too, just how like the human mind does love to categorize, and while True was talking, I was thinking about how the expert, or the idea of attachment, can cause suffering. So let's say you get like attached to some idea, and like clinging on to that can end up causing suffering. And so sometimes the ability to let go and kind of never stand in the room, you never stand in the room twice, same room twice, just makes me think about how that you need to kind of constantly be open to that. You don't know what the answer is, but you didn't have to just be cognizant of the mind that you are going to try to want to funnel it down and answer it. And it made me think of a story. We were at a meal years ago at a nice restaurant, a little Mexican restaurant, and we were there with another family. And the guy, Larry Bloom, is a brilliant economic professor at Cornell. Travels all over, advises a bunch of people, and he was like, gosh, I've been having the worst headache these past couple of days. And and his wife was like, well, Larry, if you just cleaned your glasses, you probably wouldn't have a headache anymore. And sure enough, he like ended up cleaning his glasses. He was like, oh wow, I can finally see now. It's just like how just very funny, because there's this brilliant professor of economics or whatever, but can't figure out why the reason he has a headache.
Right. Yeah, it really blinds you to the rest of the world, like life, right?
Yeah,
that's funny.
So yeah, I mean, and yet I think this concept though, like I think has its boundaries though. Like I don't think I'm going to be able to go become an NBA superstar overnight, or I think there is some skills with expertise that aren't as let's say able to transverse, let's say, work environments. But like I like the example you talked about, like let's say the farmer ended up solving like the engineering problem, or sometimes just even in like in city council or town council meetings, like you can have people who like aren't politicians have like great ideas or whatever to come up with with solutions. So so I do think it is good to be wary of experts, and yet we all become experts in a little bit. I mean, that's what we're paid to do. I also think, but I think of usually for the most part you become a better teacher with age though as well. I would say I'm a much more efficient, and that's my own opinion though, but like I would say I'm a much more efficient teacher like now compared to 4 years ago. So
well, I'm kind of curious why you think that is actually.
I guess just from my own abilities to like see students absorb skills.
That's what made you better as a teacher?
That's how I see myself being a better teacher, like from like my students' abilities to
I see. What do you do? What do you do? Let me ask you this question. Do you think you teach less or more now?
Do I teach less or more now? Differently.
How so?
I don't know, like whether I've learned to do more checks for understandings, or just learn certain tactics like in the classroom, like kind of like little tools and tool belt to make sure students are learning, or or like creating an environment that students want to learn in, or just other things to create like an engaged classroom environment.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was hoping you would say. You ask a lot more questions, it sounds like, and you confirm and find new ways to, to take the feedback from the questions you're asking your students and how they're responding to stuff to try new things, right? Like
Yeah, but I would say that comes from like experience though, and being I don't know, just from experience of teaching though.
yeah, no, I agree. I didn't say you can't be an expert in a field. There's a
Mm-hmm.
difference between being an expert and being an expert, in my opinion. Like if you have an expert that you always want to constantly learn and try new things and tinker and be creative, like that's the person that I'm saying that you want to be. That's the balance you want to find. Like, you can't like learning is fun. Like if you just went into teaching every single year and said, this is the lesson plan, I perfected it, like here's what we do, this is this, and you just told your students that every single year, you'd be fucking bored, I'm sure. And B, it just, you're an expert now. Like that's the bad expert, in my opinion. Like you can also become an expert by tinkering, by trying new things, by asking a lot of questions, but that's the balancing act between the two, where you're like, I don't know. I mean, maybe am I a good teacher? Maybe I'm not, but like I can try new stuff, like, and I can do new things and I can explore, right?
Do you have a way to distinguish or categorize between the expert and the expert, that, or I don't know what you want to call it.
I don't. Like that's what I was trying to say in this reflection is like, I mean, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in this entire journey is the truly amazing power of learning every single day, of not because of learning, but because of the fact that it's like the most addictive thing ever, and it makes time go so much faster, and everything is so much more fun and enjoyable when you're constantly trying to learn new things. Always, I don't care if you no matter how much whatever you're doing. Before in my life, what I was trying to say in this reflection, like I felt like I was pretty bored. Like I felt like I knew my job pretty damn well, and I was like, oh, here's what you want. You want to be able to achieve XYZ, just do this, this, and this, and like, call me. It's like being a doctor. Here, take 5 pills and call me in the morning, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like here, oh, here's the prescription. Like, I've solved this 500 times. Here you go. Like, be gone and come back to me whenever you want to. But like the boringness of that is what of knowing. You guys remember that book, A More Beautiful Question, right? Where like kids just stop asking questions eventually at a certain point in time, because at some point in time in your life we like transition from not knowing anything to like apparently thinking that we know some shit, like, and I don't know, like that balancing point like is what I'm trying to say, that like I want to stay at.
Yeah. Well, I think it is like, like the idea, I like the idea, at least for myself, is just the idea of like, you're not attached to a solution and you're open to new ideas. I think that's, for me, like that's what creates sort of the I don't know, the Zen expert, let's say, in like in their field, is if they are able to not be attached, and they're able to, I don't know, I think, well, it's like the classic thing, like, they always talk about like, good leaders is they're able to be flexible in what they actually think is right,
Right.
And so I think but it's like the that can be challenging, I think, for the human mind to do, because like, we love to like solidify and have a self concept of who we are and what is, and it makes us
It's comfortable.
It's a different way. It's like a different way of being.
It's like secure. It's a security blanket. It's comfortable. It's I mean, we like that. Like, I mean, that is something that we like, but we also like to be challenged, and we also like to explore, and we also like to learn new things, so I feel like for whatever weird reason, as we get older, that side of what we crave gets kind of the security and comfort becomes way more what we crave than the growing and learning and exploring and challenging. It's weird.
Yeah, and I think it kind of comes from
I think that comes from being conditioned, because if you condition yourself to be dynamic, you will be comfortable in being dynamic.
Right, I agree. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, but I wonder though too, is as we age, it's like, I mean, we don't have as much energy as when we're younger. So it is just like, I think it is like a natural
I don't think
process.
so. I've
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's like going to the gym. Maybe it's like if you
it
keep
is.
working that muscle out, then yeah, then you don't. But I think it's like, left to not going to the gym, then I do think one would naturally slide into that.
I mean, with 100%, I can say with 100% certainty that like I ask as many questions now and learn more than I have since I was like 10 years old, and it's like invigorating. Like, I mean, it's I feel the energy. It's energy sustaining all day long for me. Like, I mean, and it doesn't get old. Like, that's the thing. It's just like there's no like boringness about it. I don't know when. Like, true. I think your point is really, a good point about the whole, like, if you exercise that muscle, like we exercise in our, especially in school, like, I mean, Snow, I mean, you're a teacher. Like, this is your kids are incentivized to know. Like, you tell them something and then they're trained to say, I know this, right? I mean, am I wrong?
Or trained to say they know it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they're incentivized, they're coached, they're trained, and they are tested for mastery on whether or not they know something or not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's it. I mean, we are literally conditioned, like Drew was saying, to be the opposite of learning, free
Of
thinking.
unknown. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're trained to know.
Right. So then when we start to get older, that's what we've been trained our whole life, is to know. So
But
we
to
get
know,
ready.
like we're like, yeah, like that book. Well, what a beautiful question. Like, I mean, yeah, we've been trained to just kind of stop that inquiry a little bit.
Right.
And yeah, I think you're right. You guys are right. Like, it is a conditioning of society, and just in terms of like, hey, here's societal structure, here's the monetary system, here's government, here's what it is. Because, like, I mean, but I think it's like structure creates a lot of security though for people. Like, we can't,
Because you're familiar.
what's familiar.
Security comes from familiar.
And it's like, things need to function a certain way for, sometimes life to go on. Your mitochondria have to keep doing what mitochondria do. Like they can't decide to, I'm gonna feel like I don't know, something different today.
Well,
Well,
they could.
that's the thing, is that there are certain things that is supposed to be dynamic, meaning they are not concrete, they're abstract. Like core values is abstract, meaning, because we talked about this before, when you are in a wicked environment, you cannot use the kind measuring stick to measure the results of whatever you want to measure in a wicked environment. You have to use a wicked tool.
What do you
Like,
what can you explain more what you and Chris mean by a wicked environment?
Chris, this is your terms.
Yeah. So all right. So a kind environment, it's like basketball or chess, right? You have defined rules, and we create the rules as humans. Like, we're saying that a tennis court, you only have certain dimensions you can play in. There's only a certain amount of shots you can hit. There's only a certain amount of ways you can play the game. There's only certain things that are off limits and on limit, like allowed, right?
Gotcha.
Like that's a kind environment. You said earlier, like, I can't be a professional basketball player because that's a kind environment. Like, yes, you are rewarded for being an expert, and Novak Djokovic is undoubtedly a more expert in tennis than I am, and the more that he trains and knows, he will get better at that. But that's not how life works. Like, life is not a kind environment. Life is completely wicked. There is no like
There's
game
no
to be.
rules in a way. Yeah,
Right.
There's no set rules, right? The
Right.
rule can change, right? Change from
Everything can
today's
change.
right?
Right. Like, and that was what I was saying at the beginning of this. Like, my whole life changed in literally the course of like one day, where everything is normal. I'm an expert because I'm an expert in my
one
field.
minute. I mean, course of a
Yeah.
minute. I mean, you say, well, Felicia's fine. She was her best friend. You decided to go work out. The moment you work out, it's like she calls you literally the moment you step into the gym.
Right.
So it's not even a day. It's a flip of a
minute.
switch.
Yeah.
And like everything changes, right? And like, I mean, like everything that you cared about, that you think is so important right now in your life, like finding love, or my mortgage payments, or your kids, your lesson plans for tomorrow, how am I going to teach them this year, or whatever. Like, it's completely irrelevant. Like, it's like, oh well, this never mattered.
Yeah, well,
like,
I think it must be something like it's just like short circuits to like your survival brain in terms of like your genes and everything like that. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Oh no, I agree. I'm not saying that I'm not advocating for people. This is what I said. I'm advocating for a balanced approach. Like the whole beginner's mind idea is a great idea, but if you literally walked around not knowing anything, it's like if you walked around, being completely rational all the time too. You would do nothing. You would never go anywhere because you couldn't, like, all the complex things that your body is doing. If you were trying to think about it, like, you would never actually move. Like your mouth would probably never even open to actually be able to.
This is what I'm saying. Is the thing is that it's knowing and it's not knowing, right? Because you say, well, I know that things are going to change. That's something good to know.
Right.
Right. And then you say, well, the thing that's going to change, I don't know what's going to change. So when you look at those two things I'm asking, things are going to change. I don't know what's going to change. Right. So those things, that's what this is dynamic, right? A dynamic object, a dynamic concept, a dynamic abstract is usable in a dynamic world. But you cannot take something that is in a kind environment and measure it in a wicked environment, because it doesn't, I mean, it always adjusting, just like the river. Like, it's always different at every single second, right? A man is also different in every single second. That, no man can step in the same river twice, because the river is not the same river and the man is not the same man. He's a different man. The river is different because the water has completely flowed through, and it's a new water that came through. And so in this environment, so we have to focus on the abstract and more dynamic concepts like core values or things that we know are going to change. Like, things are going to change. So when we are an expert of something, what can we rely on to say, hey, is this something we can rely on? We know something is going to change. Therefore, what we don't know is what things are going to change and how much are going to change. So we're not going to take that into consideration in terms of our decision-making skills. We say, well, if it's not going to change, therefore I'm not going to be held back by something that I thought would work in the past, because that would actually deter me from actually be further away from actually making a good educated guess at what this is gonna be, where it's gonna be, if I were to guess at it or project at it.
I mean, it's like fighting fire with nature. I mean, really, is what you're saying. It's nature plays a different game than what humans play. Humans like to play a safe, comfortable, knowing, wicked game. Like, we love sports. Like, there's a reason why we love sports so much, because it's fun. We love to see mastery. We love to see excellence. We love to see, like, people that really do everything that they possibly can. Like, that's a unique human thing, right? I mean, you don't see dogs playing a game of baseball over there, or something like that, where they're
it's your friend's 10-year-old training to be an NBA player.
Right, exactly. You're like, what are you talking about? Like, why you're going to dedicate your whole life to this? Like, when you're but no, like, we love these things. Like, this is stuff that just, like, is a uniquely human, idea of wanting to recognize patterns and to put them into things where we feel like we're making progress. Like,
I think it's this idea that, like, we love this, like, I don't know, perfection, or we love this craft, that sometimes it's not necessarily sometimes even a building up. It's sort of like a chipping away, and just like having someone just focus just on one thing and seeing what they can create in that.
Yeah, but, like, I mean, that's great.
Doing, like, yeah, it is. No, that is great. It is great. It's neat. It's unique, and that's, like, where a lot of, like, art and expertise, I think, comes from.
Right.
It's beautiful, but it can also be suffering in that, whether you're Andre Agassi or something like that, you can also be suffering a lot. So I don't know.
Well, actually, art is I guess what we call art, like painting and writing and movies or whatever, cinema, like the Oscars were last night, right? Like, that's so subjective into what people, like, think is good or not good, because there is no, that's a wicked environment, right? Like, artistry is like, painting is a wicked environment. What is good? What is not good? Who the fuck knows? Like, you just know it when you see it, or you don't know when you don't see it. But, like, it's a moving target at all times. Like it's abstract. Like, what's a good movie? I don't know. It's totally abstract. I either liked it or I didn't like it. It made me feel good or it didn't make me feel good. It made me, it got emotions out of me or it didn't get emotions out of me. And that's
the point, though. We think about, if we understand that, let's say let's take a simplified example, right? Let's say we're going to shoot an arrow at a target, right? And if a target is stationary, that's what we are expecting. And we say, hey, I'm going to shoot at this direction, at this place, at this wind, or whatever. then it's it's going to happen all the time. But then you understand that, hey, the world is not like a stationary target. It's going to be a moving target. And then you have to count in, like, okay, how fast are they moving? Okay, what direction they're moving? Are they going to be wind involved? How far they are, that calculates the wind, and then whether or not you are leading the target enough, and then you add in those formula. Somebody has able to craft the art of actually shooting the arrow and hitting the target while the target is moving at some wind. So once you understand more dynamic rules, you can compensate for some of these things and even be able to achieve it. But if you don't understand the dynamics of the, like, hey, the target's moving, you keep shooting at it, and then when it's moving, you're gonna miss 100% of the time, even though you're an expert at shooting at a stationary target.
That's a good point. It's a
right?
dynamic
So let's
game.
extrapolate that
game.
to multiple variables, right? In the target example, I'll give you just one example. It's just moving. It's moving in one direction. And then let's say you're going to say, well, it's moving in multiple directions, backward, forward, upward, downward, to the multiple dimension. Then you have to take in these variables. Then eventually somebody will eventually figure out how to create an art to shoot the target, even if it's moving in those multi-dimensions. But if you never, ever consider that it is moving, you will always miss because you're shooting at a stationary target. That's why we say, hey, be caution of the quote unquote expert, because the thing expert is the meaning, hey, doesn't mean that you don't know anything. It's just, hey, there are certain things you should know, and there's certain things you should not take into account as knowing because it has changed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's interesting. It's a fun topic. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts for the night. This is why we love this book. It's always a thinker. It's always something you can have a lot of fun discussions around. So, yeah. Anyway, any final thoughts for the night? Because I know you were wanted to go to bed.
I would say just my final thoughts are just even what we all just kind of iterated. Just I don't want to live my life attached to ideas and not open to things, not open to other ideas or things, because it does sort of makes the world and your life limited. And I think there's a beauty in where it's like, yeah, being open to other ideas and to not knowing.
I love that. But I would ask, is the idea of not knowing an idea?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is.
So you're attached to it.
Well, don't get I'm kidding. Well, I staying attached to it.
I mean, you got a point though. I mean, that's the thing, is in a wicked environment. I mean, what is isn't, what isn't is. Right?
Yeah, I was just kidding, but yeah, I mean,
having no idea is an idea, right? Having no plan is a plan.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was joking about, but I know what you're saying, Snow. I was just being a dick.
Stop it.
True. Any final thoughts?
Yeah. So I want to agree with Snow. I think we need to have this empty mind, right? So to me, approach everything with an open mind, meaning let anything be anything and not be, I guess, fixed on this is the outcome that I'm going to want to see. Let it be what it be and just take it as is without being having an opinion on it before it happens. Because if you do, the only thing it's going to do for you is going to shift your perspective on it.
I love both the thoughts, for sure. I think mine is being an expert's boring as fuck. I mean, it's just boring. Like, I don't want my life to be boring. And not only that, is it's being an expert's anxiety riddled. It's frustrating because you're always fighting with people, telling them why they're wrong. It's like anti-human. Like it's boring. It's monotonous. It's
and it's stressful. It's stressful because
stressful.
like you say, you're going to say, well, that's not right, and then they're going to say, no, what do you mean? You get into this anxiety, self-inflicted.
Yeah. I think it can be tough though. I'm trying to interject here, but just like whether like you have a son or a daughter, like no, I don't want you to be drinking and smoking. No, like, no, and that can be
Yeah.
hard to get attached to. And I don't know, I think that's, like you say, like sometimes things are easier to conceptually live by than it's like when life actually ends up calling or knocking on your door, it can be difficult.
I totally agree with you. I've thought a lot about this because, like, with children, and and like and understanding this is kind of how these are not just ideas, these are ways that I live my life at this point in time, and like, I don't want to ever tell my son what to do, or my daughter what to do, or my other future children what to do. Like, I want to give them the freedom to choose. I want to give them the freedom to explore and find their own solutions and find their own answers. But at the same time, if I know that the answer, that what they're going down the road to do is, it's a really tough situation. Like, I mean, it really is. No, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all. I can't knowingly put my children in harm's way, but at the same time, who's to say that I'm putting them in harm's way by, maybe, like we just talked about a couple days ago, True, like the adversity hypothesis, like sometimes, the biggest trials in your life are the things you learn the most from, right? I mean, if somebody's always fucking telling you what then you don't learn. Like, I mean, then I'm depriving them of all the joy that I'm talking about, of like yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is really tough. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's a good question, Snow. Like, what would you do?
Me, I don't know. I don't have kids yet. I'm gonna think about that.
I mean, it's a tough one. Anyway, all right. Well, we can wrap there, though. That was a fun discussion as always. And the question we can leave for everyone else is, how do you find balance between knowing and not knowing in your life? Yeah, looking forward to seeing y'all tomorrow.
Sounds good. Good night, everybody.